Kentucky basketball absolutely crushed the transfer portal this offseason, so is it a given that Jayden Quaintance will be the most impactful player that Kentucky has added?
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we're going to talk about Kentucky's transfer portal class as a whole. It was excellent. There's no arguing that, but will JQ be the most impactful player on this team? I think that we could look elsewhere. Also on today's episode, the SEC has finally done it. They are expanding their conference slate to 9 games in football. I think that this is a bad thing for Kentucky, but at the very least, maybe we can get some good things year in and year out of it. But long term, I think you might have some concerns if you're a fan of Big Blue Nation. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. You can take control of your finances on Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. Want to remind everyone out there that we are free and available on all platforms. If you're watching on YouTube, would love it if you subscribed. If you're listening on podcasts, wherever you're tuned in, we're trying to get to 20,000 subscribers. Would love it if you joined up. Would mean a ton. Trying to get there before the start of college basketball season. And man, there is a great roster here that Mark Pope and company have assembled for the Wildcats. It is, in my mind, on paper, one of the better rosters in the nation. It might be the best. In fact, if you go over to Bart Torvik, he believes, at least the analytics, I should say, believe that Kentucky is the second most talented team in the nation. And that's really awesome to hear, on top of some of the transfer portal additions from some of these lower level schools, both from the mid-majors and from the lower levels of the Power 5. Kentucky did a perfect, and I mean perfect, job in the transfer portal this offseason. The class ranks 5th nationally. I think you could argue, when looking at some pieces, that Kentucky's got some kids that can fit a little bit better than maybe some of the programs that are above them in the rankings. And it's also interesting to me, and I didn't fully realize this until I started making notes for the show earlier today, that Kentucky essentially grabbed an entire starting 5 out of the transfer portal with some positional versatility to boot. You've got Jaylen Low at point guard, Denzel Aberdeen at the 2, Cam Williams at the 3, Mo Diabate at the 4, and then Jayden Quaintance there, obviously, at the 5. Those 5 players, I think, are going to be crucial for Kentucky in a variety of ways. We've harped on Denzel Aberdeen's performances, or what he could be, I should say, as of late. We took a very deep dive into some analytics over on the Substack and here on the YouTube channel. We've talked about how Jaylen Low has been shooting 42% from 3 during 5-on-5 action in practice. That's been a big boost to us confidence-wise here at Locked On Kentucky. Mo Diabate is going to be one of the better defenders off rip on this team. He should be the most physical player that Kentucky has there at the 4. And then we all know what Jayden Quaintance is going to be, one of the better defenders in the entire country, arguably at the top of the list when it comes to picking potential defensive player of the year, guys. JQ is going to be phenomenal. I have continued to say over and over and over and over this offseason that Jayden Quaintance is going to be the guy that propels Kentucky deep into the NCAA tournament defensively. He has to be special defensively for UK. I said on a recent episode that Otega Owe will be the reason that Kentucky makes a deep run and finishes it if they are able to do so, because of his experience, because of his versatility on both ends of the floor. It's one of the better players in college basketball. Might not be the flashiest, but definitely one of the more efficient players. We talked about those stats on yesterday's episode. But Jayden Quaintance has kind of been, in my mind and in a lot of people's minds, when you look at this transfer portal class that Kentucky's put together, he has been the guy that people look at and say, oh, he is the X factor. He is the guy that makes or breaks this. The addition of the former 5-star that almost ended up in Lexington as a freshman, he is the guy that makes this go. I think that there are 2 reasons why you might look at another player in this transfer portal class and say, okay, those guys might end up being more impactful, or that guy might end up being more impactful. First and foremost, I think you have to talk about health. Is Jayden Quaintance going to be ready by the start of the season? You've heard my takes here if you've been listening to the show. I think he's going to be ready. Just based on what we've seen online, he looks pretty freaking good, right? Will Kentucky play him to start? That is the question. And if he's not fully healthy, obviously can't impact the game as much. If he's not out there, Kentucky's got some big-time games to start this non-conference slate, most notably Louisville on the road in the KFC Yum Center, one of the dumbest names for a basketball arena in existence. I'll say that. JQ cannot be as impactful as perhaps another starter here that's being pulled from this transfer portal class. He can't be as impactful as that guy if he's not out there for some of the most crucial games early in the season. Or at the very least, he's not out there as long as maybe another player from this transfer portal class. Because something that I think I've talked about a little bit, but I've not discussed at length, is the question of how does Mark Pope rotate his 5 men this season? Brandon Garrison, after a season in this system, people would like to expect improvement. I don't necessarily know if we're going to get that. Based on what reports have been saying, he's still been pretty inconsistent. You see the highs, you see the lows. He will get minutes at the 5. He will split time almost definitely with Jayden Quaintance. He is not as good of a defender. He is not as explosive of an athlete. He's not as fluid as JQ is. He knows the system better. He has way more experience here, and he deserves to play. Brandon Garrison is a good enough player to play in this rotation. But I think you are going to look up when the non-con slate is over and you're heading into SEC play and you're going on the road and that first game in Tuscaloosa and you're saying, I'd like to see Jayden Quaintance play 35 minutes in this one. I'd like to see him play 30 minutes in this. I don't want to see him split time 2020, 22-18, something like that with Brandon Garrison because he provides more value on the floor. Jayden Quaintance cannot be at the most impactful Wildcat if he's splitting time at the 5, which is almost definitely going to happen. So I think that turns you to an obvious answer as to who will be the most impactful player for Kentucky this offseason. If it's not Jayden Quaintance, which we have continued to beat the drum on the show that it is going to be him, who else will it be? We'll discuss that player here in just a second. Before we do that, though, tell you guys about our friends over at Monarch Money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. And that's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. They do the heavy lifting for you, and you can access all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, and get smart categorization of your spending. You can finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. You can identify that you aren't saving as much as you thought pretty easily. I have been able to do that, seeing things that I've been paying for that I absolutely do not need to be. Sometimes multiple subscriptions to the same service when I only just need one. Monarch Money has helped me identify those and get rid of them. You do not need to let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Be active. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. Today's episode is also brought to you by Open Phone. If you are running a business, every single missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you needed a service. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. You moved on. That's why you need Open Phone, so you never miss an opportunity to connect with your customers. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications. Do you juggle 2 phones just to keep business and personal calls separate? Well, Open Phone can solve that instantly. Your whole team can share one number and respond to customers like a shared inbox, and it's no more asking, well, who's handling this, who's on this, and the AI agent handles after-hour calls as well, answers common questions, and captures leads, so you never missed a customer ever again. See why over 60,000 businesses trust Open Phone. They're offering Locked On listeners 20% off their first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedoncollege. That's openphone.com/lockedoncollege. They'll even port over your existing numbers for free. Open Phone. No missed calls, no missed customers. All right, continuing along here on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. Really appreciate you guys checking out the show today. If you have not subscribed on the YouTube channel or the podcast feed, would love it, love it, love it, love it if you did so. Thank you guys, all of you who are already watching, the people in the comments that are always there. I appreciate you. The everydayers, as we like to call them here on Locked On. You guys have been incredible. Really appreciate you. We're getting so close to football and basketball, man. We are 2 days away from the start of the college basketball or football season. Oh, if it was 2 days away from college basketball, I'd be freaking bouncing off the walls right now. But we're so close. We are so close, guys. Let's just hang in there. So we explained why Jayden Quaintance, there are 2 reasons why he might not be the most impactful player on this team via the transfer portal. One of them is health in crucial moments early in the schedule. The second one is he has to split playing time with a pretty good player in Brandon Garrison at the 5. At least that's what we are expecting based on what Mark Pope did last year. So who could impact Kentucky more? Well, there are 5 other options. Andrea Jelovich, which you can argue if he's a transfer or if he's a recruit. I'd like to say he's a transfer from Croatia because the man is, 20, 21? He's already been playing pro ball. That's a transfer in my mind. Cam Williams, transfer from Tulane. Denzel Aberdeen, transfer from Florida. We talked recently why he's the perfect role player for UK. And then Jaylen Low, the point guard from Pitt. I think Jaylen Low is the other player here that you look at. You look at this portal class, you say Jaylen Low has an opportunity to be the most impactful player on this Kentucky basketball team. Hands down, the most impactful player. Why can he be that? Well, first and foremost, he plays a position that Kentucky struggled to keep healthy a season ago. Lamont Butler, Kirk Carissa, Travis Perry, all those guys at some point dealt with injury, sometimes for an extended period of time. If Jaylen Low can stay healthy, knock on wood, he will be the most productive point guard probably in the SEC. When it comes to scoring, when it comes to distribution, when it comes to impacting how the offense is going to flow, Jaylen Low will be perfect for Mark Pope. He's twitchy. He's got a great handle. He's fast. He can do some major damage in the paint in that floater area. And I will reiterate what I said a couple of episodes ago. If he is shooting north of 40% like he has been in 5-on-5, that is an All-American type player. That is an All-SEC type player. To give you 14, 15, 16 plus a game on that efficiency with that primary ball handling, with that primary playmaking, with the distribution, right? That is a very good player. It's hard to top that. Of course, as we've talked about on the show, I think that Jayden Quaintance is going to trump all with his ability to defend the rim. He's just got to be out there and healthy. But Jaylen Low, I think you can make a great argument for why he could be the most impactful player from the portal for UK this season. It's a really good class here, man. It's a really, really good class. I think that Jaylen could be that. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Is Jaylen Low going to be the most impactful? Is it somebody else? Is it Jelovich? Seen some of you guys commenting about him recently. All right. We're going to talk football. Yeah, I know we don't talk it enough on the show, blah, blah, blah. But there's an interesting piece of news that came out here this afternoon about the SEC implementing a 9-game conference schedule. It's finally happening. All of the people in the Big Ten whining and moaning and complaining about the SEC doesn't play as many conference games as we do. We got it tougher. When nobody really realizes or acknowledges, and when they do, they say it's not true or that the numbers are lying to them. Not a lot of people seem to appreciate just how freaking tough it is to play in this league. And everybody wants to say, well, the SEC's top heavy. What they don't understand is that the average quality of opponent in this conference is significantly higher than any conference out there. Full stop. But the SEC has decided to add a 9th conference game. So all of the people in the Big Ten, the head coaches, Kurt Cignetti, whoever else has been flapping their mouth about the SEC doesn't play as tough of a schedule, yada, yada, yada. You can finally, and I mean this with all sincerity, you can shut up. You can just shut up. Because as a conference, this is great. We didn't need a 9th conference game, but we're going to get one. Let me tell you why the SEC is doing this. It's not to strengthen the strength of schedule. It's not to tighten the grip on the balls of college football. It's for money. There's no other way to put this. There's no other logical explanation. We are adding a 9th game for extra money. SEC doesn't need a 9th one to prove that they've got the best strength of schedule in the country. Or at least most SEC teams don't. And I think the good thing about this specific announcement via the SEC is what Commissioner Greg Sankey had to say about the specifics surrounding it. Here's the direct quote. Adding a 9th SEC game underscores our university's commitment to delivering the most competitive football schedule in the nation. This format protects rivalries, increases competitive balance, and paired with our requirement to play an additional power opponent, ensures SEC teams are well prepared to compete and succeed in the college football playoffs. What that means there, most interesting portion of that, what that means, paired with our requirement to play an additional power opponent, is for Kentucky. If you're listening to this in Pikeville and you want to know how this impacts the Big Blue Nation, we get to keep Louisville on the schedule, and this hurts Kentucky more than it helps them in the long term. I'll get to that in a second. But first things first, you guys may have some concerns about Louisville. That is staying. Maggie Davis actually tweeted out earlier today. She reached out for comment from Kentucky, and they said that they've got a long-standing agreement with Louisville. That's not going anywhere. The Cardinals are staying on the schedule. But what this means for the entirety of this conference is that the people that do not, or excuse me, the programs that don't have a Louisville, a Florida State, a Georgia Tech already into their schedule, we're doing away with the Florida Atlantics, with the Charlottes, with the UTEPs of the world, right? For that season opener or that second weekend in September or that game before, the cupcake game before your rivalry game in November. We're going to now replace that with a Washington State, with an SMU, with a Clemson, right? We're going to make sure that not only are we playing a 9-game conference schedule in the best conference in America, but we're also making sure that we are scheduling somebody that's worth their salt to some extent over a group of 5 team. We're making sure that all of our programs are slapping that on the schedule somewhere, which a lot of these programs already have that. So this is fine. And this is okay for Kentucky. This doesn't mean you're going to look up in August after getting all fired up about Kentucky basketball and what they're doing in the offseason. You're not going to look up in August to go, oh, crap, we got to play Ohio State in week 1. On top of playing Louisville in a 9-game, that's not going to be the case for us. But as far as this league goes, we are embracing the most difficult schedule in America for a lot of these high-end teams. They are wholeheartedly embracing it. You want to know why? ESPN's FPI seems to be SEC biased, excuse me. You want to know why ESPN seems so SEC biased? Because it's the best. There's no the analytics, the talent roster, the coaching, everything from top to bottom is the best. It is the most well-rounded conference in America. Full stop. The middle of this league is light years ahead of everybody else out there. Everyone. There is no debate. Obviously, there is debating that because people want to try and argue it. In my mind, there's no arguing it. It is an objective point. So this is good for the whole of the league. I think this is fine for the whole of the league. This sucks for Kentucky, man. This sucks for Kentucky. We'll break this down here in a second. Before we do it, though, I'll tell you guys about our friends real quick about our friends over at Prize Picks. This episode's brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy platform. It lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason's already heating up, and college football is not far behind. Whether you've got your eye on a big-name quarterback or breakout running backs, Prize Picks makes it really easy to get into the game. It's super simple to play, guys. All you got to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could win cash and win up to 2,000 times your money. I've used Prize Picks for a few seasons now. I really love how simple it is. I love using it for baseball and NFL. If I can get a lineup in on college game day before my coffee even finishes brewing. It's pretty sick. The flex option's also a game changer. Even with when one of your picks misses, you can still double your money. I've done that in the past. You can download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks, run your game. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I think I've said this online as well. I'm going to take the Green Bay Packers. Shout out Peter Bukowski, also host of Locked On Sports Today, host of Locked On Packers. I'm going to be riding and dying with Jordan Love and the Packers as my Super Bowl champ over on FanDuel. You can visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. All right, wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. Appreciate you guys tuning in. SEC slate's officially moving to a 9-game conference schedule, according to reports. Greg Sankey pointing out we still got to play an additional power opponent. So that's 10 power opponents you're going to be playing every year. That's tough, and it sucks for UK. I said this a few years back on the show. When it comes to conference scheduling, there is a hierarchy in this league. No doubt about it. Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Texas. There are teams here. I would say that there is a middle of the pack to top half of this league that will be perfectly fine adding a 9th game because they have the talent rosters and the coaching to get them through one more tough out, right? The bottom of this league, bottom third, bottom fourth of this league is going to struggle. It hurts them competitively. Mississippi State, I would say Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Kentucky, South Carolina most years. Excuse me, sorry. I think that those teams are going to struggle because they're going to look up, and instead of having your Charlottes, your Florida Atlantics, et cetera, like I mentioned earlier, of the world, week 3 in September, you got to go on the road, you got to play Auburn. You got to go on the road, you got to play Alabama. You got to play Missouri in Como. That just, it hurts your ability to make the postseason. It hurts your ability to punch to your ceiling, right? And Kentucky, I think, knows better than anybody over the last decade or so what an upset looks like. They know how to go out there and punch with the best of the best, to play with the Floridas, to play with the Tennessees, to play with the Texas A&Ms, to play with the Georgias, right? They can compete, sometimes win. Actually, more than anybody, over the last 5 years, Kentucky has the most ranked some of the most ranked wins in the SEC, which is really impressive. But it's not about what has been; it's about what will be. Looking forward, looking ahead. There's the question of whether or not Mark Stoops is starting to lose a little bit of the mojo. If he's starting to lose a little bit of what has made this program special in the past. If I am Kentucky and I see this year's team and I'm thinking about next year's squad in terms of recruiting, portal, coaching, and you have to play 9 games, making a bowl is really tough. Now, if you beat that team, it further strengthens you. But it is a net negative for UK. However, as Matt Jones of KSR pointed out on Twitter earlier today, makes it more fun. A lot of you don't want to hear this. This is a basketball school. A lot of you don't want to hear this is a basketball podcast for the most part. We will cover football when it gets here, and it's here, so we're talking about it. But if I asked you, here's 10 national championships, divvy them between football and basketball, the average Kentucky fan would give almost all, if not all of them, to Mark Pope and the Cats. They just would. Basketball means more to this university. I am worried, I'm not saying it's going to happen, I am worried that Kentucky football is going to take a backseat once more when Stoops either retires or leaves this program for somebody else, which he already tried to do. I want to be clear. It almost happened, and A&M freaked out. But when that does occur, if Kentucky doesn't nail their next hire, things could be going downhill pretty quick. And I don't know how you punch past that. Paired with potential success of the basketball program. Let's say the basketball program makes a final. Let's say they win it all. Go to a Final Four, win the title this year. Do you really think this administration is going to look and say, okay, why don't we throw some money at this again? We put together a $20 million roster or whatever it was. Let's throw that money at this again. See if they can do it again. Obviously, there is incentive to pour more resources into basketball than your average SEC program. This is Kentucky, baby. So I am concerned. Who should Kentucky's 3 opponents be? I'll give you 3 here real quick. I think Tennessee is the first team I would like to see. I would like to see Florida as the second opponent. And I would like to see the third as either Mississippi State or Vanderbilt. Tennessee and Florida, 2 of our bigger rivals. I'd like to see them. And you could toss it up between Mississippi State and Vandy as the third game. Maybe you want Georgia. I prefer Tennessee and Florida. Let me know what you think in the comments below. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. Follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK. Follow me on Twitter at @LanceDawe_. Follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I'll see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. And of course, God bless.